To make a YouTube video, there are so many steps involved, and it's not always easy to think about which step comes next, and sometimes you just want the checklist. And that's what this video is about. I'm gonna take you through 40 steps that are involved in making a good YouTube video, and this is gonna help both beginners and more experienced creators. The way we're gonna do it is I'm going to go through each of the stages of production, and then I'm gonna talk to you about the steps that I believe are very important. Let's make this an efficient video. So the first stage of content creation is called ideation. In the ideation stage, the idea is that we're going to come up with a video title, figure out the topic, figure out the format, and how we're going to present the video to the viewer. So step number one is finding a topic. Topic is very easy. We're going to find something that we want to talk about. So in our case, what we could say is we want to talk about dumbbells. That would be the topic because it is a talking point in our video. Step number two is to check the topic's relevancy. Before we even make a video about dumbbells, we want to make sure that dumbbells are actually relevant enough. So what we can simply do is check, for example, Google Trends and see the relevancy of thumbnail as a keyword. Sometimes, such as in the dumbbells case, they don't really lose their relevance because they're what we consider evergreen. But certain topics, such as Squid Game, they do lose their relevancy over time. And that's why we want to be very particular in when we make videos about these topics. Step number three is to figure out the format. You can have a topic, but we want to figure out a way to present this topic. You could do this as a 10 ways to use a dumbbell or what's the best way to use a dumbbell. These are two different formats. What we want to figure out is with our topic, what are 5 or 10 formats that we can place this topic in. And this also brings us to step number 4, to check if the format has data to support its viral potential. Now what this means is that we're going to look across other channels. This could be channels in our own niche or channel in other niches, and we're going to see this format of like 10 ways to use a dumbbell. Does this generally perform better than their average videos, or do these things cause underperformers? So if we notice that creators on average score pretty good with these formats, then we're going to probably be okay with using that as well. Then in step number 5, we combine the viral format or the format that we've seen gone viral, and then we combine it with the topic where we know its relevancy is good. And we create one long sentence that becomes our title. This is important to say, but when you talk about the best videos, the title is typically already created way before the video gets created. The title sets an expectation, so you're gonna have to make content that matches that expectation. So if you make the title afterwards, it can sometimes be difficult. Number 6 is to create 1 to 3 thumbnail sketches. And very similar to how you make a title format, thumbnails also have formats. So for example, I made a video where I showcase some thumbnail formats, and I'll show you 3 on screen right now. The first sketch could be a before-after, like a choice. This is especially good if you have a transformation video. The second thumbnail could be a mid-action shot, where we take a frame from the video and we make it look better for the thumbnail, of course, and that becomes our second thumbnail sketch. And then number 3, we could have the standard reaction shot where we have you on the side and then whatever is happening next to you, that's also thumbnail. In the ideation stage, we don't really develop the thumbnails yet because we first have to do the video and maybe the video gets scrapped, but it's already good to have some sketches. So at this point, we have set up the video for success from a selling point of view. Now we're gonna have to think about the actual video content. And this stage is called pre-production. So step number 7 is to create your director's notes. Your director's notes is a simple document. Typically I use Google Docs, where you fill in most of the things related to your video, whether it's your segments, your voice lines, your locations, the items that you need. Even your thumbnail and your title could be on this document. Step number 8 is to first create a summary of your video. This is a 1-paragraph outline of the overall idea behind your video and what your video is going to offer to the viewer. How does the video start? What are the cool little segments and what is the journey we're gonna go towards, and how does the video end? This one we often compare to the title to see like, hey, if people click on this title, does this description give them a satisfying experience, yes or no? If no, then we adjust it. Then step number 9. Now that we know the outline, we're now going to create our segments. We're talking about, hey, this video, it's about 10 segments, so we have segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, segment 4, and we write down the title of those segments. We give them a little title such as going to the store. That's our first segment. The second segment could be checking the items and building my first wall. Step number 10 is to then fill in those segments. So we're gonna give kind of like the summary of the whole video. We're gonna give a summarization of the entire segment. And this could be either a summarization or you could literally write it word by word. This depends if you have scripted or non-scripted content, and this also depends on how you like to do your videos. Number 11 is to then look at the variety. So what we're going to do now that we know the video is to look, hey, is there enough variety between these segments and enough change in direction and pacing so that it stays interesting. So if you have a listicle video, often people do everything is like say something this way, say something this way, say something this way. But the problem is it gets boring because it gets very repetitive. So what we do is we have shorter segment, long segment with complex elements and conflict and stuff, shorter segment, very long one. So you know, we have some variety and some changes here, but that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to ensure that segments don't always feel like a repetitive rhythm. This is optional, but step number 12 is to figure out the shooting locations. As you see, I typically film in one location, so for me this step isn't that important, but if I want to improve these videos, I should sometimes actually move from location to location. It would be a lot more interesting if one scene I'm presenting here, then I'm going to my couch, then I'm going outside and create some visual variety. So if you want the best content, add some variety, some visual variety through the scenery changes. This is where you note it down per segment. Step number 13 is to list your props and elements that you will need in your video. So I'm not really using any props, but if you are making your YouTube video, you could be presenting with a pen. I just had a pen laying around here. And maybe you need that one. That's a prop because you're using it and maybe you're drawing it. And maybe the next one, you want to present something new and you want to talk about something. And you're like, hey, if you have your phone, well, now the pen and the phone both becomes a prop. So you need to write it down if that's important for your video. Anything you need becomes a prop, so you write it down. This could be on the bottom of your document in what we call a prop list. Step number 14 is to plan your camera angles. As you can see, I just have one camera angle, which is a static frontal camera. Some people use a 2-camera setup, especially in talking head videos, so that you can break up the shot. However, if you are making more in real life content, then you understand that sometimes you will need a wide shot that captures the entire scene before following you. You may need to capture certain things that are happening. Let's say you're doing a prank in public, you need to film the person, you know, pranking, but you also need a hidden camera, you need a different angle, you need a reaction camera. There's so many cameras. This is where you plan them. In each segment, you write that down as, hey, these are the camera angles we need to have for sure. Step number 15 is your B-roll shots. Yes, you kind of planned this in the scripting already. B-roll shots are your insert shots of footage that you use from websites like Envato Elements, or sometimes you capture this yourself. This is whenever you're talking about a pancake, we want to see a visual of a pancake. This helps with visualization and makes the video more engaging. Step 16, plan out your most important voice lines. And typically these are your intro, your outro, and your transition voice lines that bring you from one segment to another where you may not be on screen. And step number 17 is to write down under a segment reminders what the viewer needs to be reminded of on a regular basis. In this video, for example, you may have already forgotten that there's 40 steps. So by me now saying this, you've been reminded. And this makes it more likely for you to watch until the end. So write down all of the important elements that the viewer needs to be reminded of on a regular basis. So all of this is the prep from a creative point of view. So as a recap, right now we get the idea, we get the thumbnail title, and then we get the entire script. So let's get into production, which is where we create the content. Step number 18, we prepare all the camera and all the lighting and all the equipment that we're going to need for our film shoot. This could be camera, this could be your microphones and your lighting, this could also be your props. Step number 19 is to check everything. So for example, for your camera, you want to make sure that your SSD card is big enough, right? If you film long takes, probably a 16GB SD card is probably not going to be good enough. But also your battery, your camera might only be able to film for that long, so make sure to get your backup battery packs. Same for testing your lighting and making sure it works, and even the settings of your camera. Step number 20, this may sometimes be forgotten, but you're not allowed to film anywhere. So make sure that whenever you're filming, especially on location, that you have all the permits and everything that you need in order to film on those locations. This is more the legalities of things, but again, they are important. Then step number 21 is simple. Just film the content. Now, step number 22 is something that you have to do during filming this content, which is you clap to sync the audio. I always clap at the beginning of my videos. Actually, I didn't do it in this video, so sorry, editor. But normally, You always clap to help your editor, or if you edit yourself, to sync the audio with the footage. Step number 23 is to take notes. A lot of times when you're filming something, it is not going to go according to plan. And sometimes you have a lot of things not going according to plan. But those things are really good. So if you're having these moments, it's good to note down those moments so that afterwards you can pause them onto your editor and make it easy for them to understand how you are envisioning this video. What I like to do is I like to include them in the director's notes because, you know, they're the director's notes. And that way we can just send the entire outline and everything that we've prepped to our editor with new notes of what actually got filmed. And that way they have all the context to see what you envisioned with the video and what actually got filmed. Number 24 is, you know that B-roll that we planned? We're gonna film that B-roll. We're gonna take those insert shots. Typically we do it after filming unless it's a live shoot that we cannot do it after. So sometimes if you have a larger team, you would leave the set and your cinematographer, they would capture everything that you've mentioned. If you've mentioned the pancake, they'll make sure there's a B-roll shot of a pancake. Step number 25, you send all of this stuff, the footage, the notes, to your editor and let them go to work. And this work brings us to the fourth phase, which is post-production. I'm still gonna go through this because some of you edit your videos yourself, some of them send it to editors. But it's a good process to go through. Step number 26, you transfer your footage from your camera with your SD card to your PC, and then typically you upload it on something like Google Drive so that the editor can start working on this. If you're working on this, then you just put it on your computer. Step 27 is that we take this footage, we put it in our editing program, and the first thing that we do is syncing the audio and the visuals so that we can start working on these things. Step 28 is to create a rough outline of our story beats. So in a lot of cases, you don't have to do this step because it's already predefined by the script, but sometimes you just have a bunch of footage and you kind of want to know like, okay, this happens, do I want to place this first or second? So a great way that somebody taught me to do it is to have sticky notes and to kind of lay it all out and then to be like, is this literally the best order that I can work with? Then step 29, we create our first rough edit. So this is where we put it all according to how we planned it and we kind of roughly put it all together. This is typically your very long edit where everything is in place, so when you skim through it, you kind of feel like, hey, this seems to be doing really good. I like this overall shape of this video. So it's a rough edit, but without any music, effects, or anything like that. Then step 30 is where we start adding basic music. It doesn't have to be the final music yet. We add our special effects, we start trimming things, and we just make the video overall look fairly good. This is also a step where you can start adding some of your zooms already. Step 31, and this really depends on what kind of team you have. If you have a very advanced team, you do this step. If you're on your own, then maybe you can skip this step. But it's to sit back, export the video, look at it as a whole, and leave your first editor notes. Typically I like to use frame.io, which is good to upload to your video. You leave some notes, but it's a good way because before you're going to look for that perfect song, add all the visual elements, we're gonna take a step back and already observe the whole video and see, do we like it as a whole and what are the points we wanted to work on? Step 32 is, now that you've got these notes, we want to actually polish our video, take into account all the notes that we left on the structure, and then really start to polish both the music, the visuals, the sound effects, the visual effects if you're using them, and make the video feel like it's pretty much ready for upload. However, that brings us to step number 33, which is often forgotten. Even when you feel your video is ready, in the best cases, we still go to some type of cutting stage. This is where we're going to look at the video and be like, what are all of the unessential elements that we can cut out? And the reason why we do this is because we know unessential elements or elements that don't really move the video forward, those are elements that are going to bore the viewer and tune out the viewer. So we cut those out and the video will feel tighter and stronger just by doing that. Step number 34 is we often get an external review, or we get one more round of reviews of notes because we want to see that everything is perfect and then the video is ready. Now that the video is ready, you know, we had those thumbnail sketches, but we didn't design them yet. So that's where one stage comes into place, which is thumbnail design. Step number 35 is where we create 1 to 3 thumbnail designs from the sketches that we've made and we fully work them out. If we're short on time, we can do one thumbnail, but in the best cases, we use multiple thumbnails, especially because YouTube, you can test the thumbnails right now. Then we have step number 36 is where we upload the video on YouTube. We add the title, the descriptions, any end screens that we may have, plus the thumbnail, and we just get it ready for upload. Now note, a lot of people will tell you that you need to think about your descriptions and your tags and your keywords and your SEO. Those things, I'm gonna be honest, everybody who I've ever worked with, and these are very large creators, I don't remember the last time when we talked about tags. Make a good video, make a title that people will be interested in, and your video will do fine. Then we have the final few steps in our last stage, which is upload and analysis, and this is where we're gonna give 4 new steps to round us up. Step number 37, we ensure that whenever we upload thumbnails, we upload them as an A/B test on the new YouTube test and compare feature. Then we upload the video and see how it performs. Step number 38 is where we analyze the retention data, which is the data that shows how people have been watching the video in order to get learnings for the future. This step, typically we want to do it for at least 48 hours after the video got uploaded, as that's when the retention data really becomes available and we get most of the data that we need to have. Then step number 39 is where we take our initial thumbnail test, and after 5 days we run it again. The reason why is because your thumbnail may initially perform better than your other thumbnails for your initial audience, but it doesn't mean it's going to perform as well for another audience. And then the last step of all is any test that you're doing with your title and your thumbnails afterwards is we do it in 2-week intervals. This means that you test something and you let it play for about a minimum of 2 weeks to see the results. Anything shorter may get you skewed results, and anything longer than that is not really that important because the data is going to stay pretty much the same. So hopefully this helps you with your content creation process, and if you miss something, and if I miss something, there's a lot more steps depending on who you work with, on what kind of content you work, but this should serve as a good base. And if you want to have this list by yourself, I'll put it in the description as well. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.